So I'm going to start trying something a little bit different now. I'm going to start target feeding the corals more often. And I'm going to keep on going in there and removing algae. As you guys can see, I removed a lot of it. There still is some of the smaller patches. I'll just keep on going in there and pulling it out periodically. But for now, it's good. Nothing's in a bad position. All the corals don't really have a lot around them, so it's good. The only thing would be the anemone, which still has a little bit, but I cleared out a lot of that. And it just ate a mysis shrimp too, so that was good to see. I'm going to try target feeding these things a bit more often because I feel like I'm not target feeding them often enough. If anything, they're getting target fed maybe once a month. And most of when they get fed foods that are specifically for them, it's mostly broadcast feeding. So for example, I just fed Reefroids and mysis as a target fed food. And look at the frog spawn, how much more open it is. If you look at earlier videos, it's nowhere close to this. So maybe I just had to target feed them often. Just a thought. I saw some people put up that Reefroids brought a hammer back that was not growing for months. So I'm gonna try feeding Reefroids more often. I'm gonna try feeding mysis more often. But I'm still gonna have to feed pellets every single day. I also think that, just a thought, that these fish are probably gonna need more in the long run to eat, because saltwater fish use up a lot more energy than freshwater fish, and it's really underestimated because these little chromis have very fast metabolisms, and that's why a lot of people say, oh, the chromis killed each other off a lot. Sure, they do that sometimes, but usually they kill each other because they're hungry or because the flow in the tank is too low. But usually it's never flow. Usually it's the lack of larger fish and the simple lack of food, if they're not fed well enough. I mean, if you look at the goby, he just had a full meal and he barely has a bulge in his stomach. They need a lot of food too. So I gotta keep on feeding him more. The Duncan, I'm not gonna push up today again. I just did that and it got pushed over again already, so whatever. But I just target fed him too and he looked good. Everything kind of got target fed, so that's all good. Now I'm just kind of hoping that everything looks good in the long run. I just gotta keep on. I guess today and tomorrow I'm probably not gonna go in there and pull out more algae. But I think over the weekend I probably will pull out a little bit more just because, you know, why not, right? Especially since some of them I could put on one of the smaller gloves and just go right over there on top. Because a couple spots over there I could just reach in and pull out. But I'm going to continue to target feed these corals now over the next couple of days and see what happens. Not every single day, but I'm going to try to feed the fish more. Just because, simply put, compared to what people say these fish and corals should be consuming, I'm not feeding really anything close to what some people feed their tanks. Yet again though, you would think this algae problem is because of that. I think it's just because, simply put, the corals aren't growing to take up space. And something eventually had to grow to take up space. Because if the corals weren't fighting, then I would assume that it would be easier for the algae to take hold. So I guess whenever I feed Reefroids and such now, I'm going to try to feed them more often instead of pellets, Reefroids and mysis together. Because that just might be a better option for me to try to get these corals doing better. And the fish too. I have to get these fish doing a little better too. Because let's face it, this goby's barely grown since I got him. Maybe a little bit, but these fish can be growing a little bit better and doing a little bit better. But the fish as a whole are doing good. The fish are not the problem, it's the coral right now. In terms of fish, I'm doing very well. But if there's a way to improve, I'm going to try it. And in terms of fish, I have no difficulty with these fish right now. The only fish that I have a little difficulty with right now might be the coal tang. And the fact that it only eats mastic and the occasional mysis shrimp. But I know it's well fed. It still has a decent amount of weight on it, so it's good. Everybody else is eating well, so it's just a matter of me consistently feeding everyone. As for now, though, I'm just going to focus on occasionally target feeding the coral more often. Because, to be honest, I'm probably target feeding them only once a month, and I'm broadcast feeding maybe once per week. And even then, whenever I broadcast feed, it's usually not Reefroids and mysis. It's usually just mysis. And then once a month when I mix in Reefroids, I'll either broadcast feed that or I'll target feed both together. But I noticed all 3 times when I target fed right after, the anemone looks a lot better. So I target fed him again today to see what would happen. And he took 2 mysis shrimp. So that was good to see. Now as for the torch and the frog spawn, they don't really take mysis from what I've seen, but they definitely extend a little more. At least in the case of the frog spawn, it's really noticeable, but I guess all I can try to do now is keep on feeding these guys and keep on pulling out algae. All I gotta do is keep on trying with them. I'm thinking maybe if I target feed more often and I get these fish doing better, it will also make the corals do better. So as for the tests yesterday, they were all basically exactly in line. All the coral parameters were good. 9.5 ALK, 450 calcium, and I think it was 1500 magnesium. The nitrates were still very low. I couldn't exactly tell what they were, but I could tell they were between 0 and 5, but they didn't look like 0, but they definitely didn't look like 5. They looked more like in between, so I'm going to say a 3 or a 2, which is good because that's the highest my nitrates have hit in a while, and that's about where I would want to be at. So it's good that I finally have some nitrates. And I guess the last thing to mention would be, pH was 8.1, but that's always been 8.1. It rarely ever changed in this tank. So I just got to keep everything stable and keep on feeding more often, and I guess take out algae periodically. And because my food input is not, I'm only feeding once a day. Even with all these fish, they're only getting fed once a day. And even then, to be fair, some of the more active species, I'm not sure how they're going to do on that long term. So I know chromis are prone to killing each other when being fed once a day. I know that these two tangs, the wrasse and the goby, are prone to occasional problems while being fed once a day, although I think the wrasse can make it fine on once a day. I mean, heck, he went 6 weeks without me seeing him. I think he's fine. The tangs could probably go on once a day. It's more of the goby and the 5 chromis, but yeah, I gotta keep on feeding everybody. I'm gonna try feeding them pellets later too. Try to see how they react to getting fed both in a day, along with mastic. So I have a diversity of foods. I'm gonna start trying to feed more of a consistent diversity. Rather than just feeding them more often, I'm gonna try to feed more of a diversity because, to be honest, they're getting fed pellets 6 out of the 7 days in the week usually. And on the 7th day, they usually get fed mysis alone. So if I can mix in erythroids more often than once a month or twice a month, which is kind of where I'm at, and if I could try to get some mastic in there more often, which I tried 3 times already, then that would be good. So, yep, that's it for today. See you guys on the next one.